II oral history of the Palm Springs Air Museum. And we're very privileged to have this program with a grant from the Library of Congress. And this morning's veteran is a paratrooper from World War II from 1943 to 1945. His name is D. Housel, and D is going to spell his name and give us his birthday date for the record.
My name is Dewitt, D-E, capital W-I-T-T, Housel, H-O-U-S-E-L.
When were you born?
October 9th, 1924.
Where did your grandparents come from?
They were local to LaGrange and Western Springs area.
And what nationality are they?
Well, part German, part English, combination.
Good. How about your folks?
Same.
And what were their names, and can you remember your mother's maiden name?
My father's name was, I'm a junior, and my mother's maiden name was Sanders, and Florence was her first name.
And were you were born in LaGrange?
I was born in Chicago,
In Chicago, okay.
but I had both my parents, both sides were residents of LaGrange and Western Springs.
I see. So you grew up there, or did you?
Grew up in Western Springs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember about some of your early days? Like, where did you go to grade school or junior high?
Went to the Grand Avenue School and the McClure School at that time, and then on to LT, LaGrange Lyons Township High School. My father went to the same grade school, and I had one of the teachers who remembered him, if you can believe this. And then when my first son came along, one of the teachers remembered me. It's kind of interesting.
What was LaGrange like in those days? Can you remember? What were some of the things you did as a kid to enjoy it, or did you have any hobbies or participation in events and sports?
Well, yeah, I played football and no basketball, but LaGrange was a lot smaller in those days, Western Springs. Although there isn't, the high school is, what am I trying to say, that there weren't that many people that added to it in the past 15 years or so.
Okay.
It grew very quickly, and then it's constrained by the size, by the limits of the village,
Mm-hmm.
both Western Springs and LaGrange.
What did your dad do? Did you have any feelings about the Depression, or during those years that you were, in school and
Oh, yes.
grade school?
My father used to get up at 4:30 or 5 every morning, walk from the far western part of Western Springs down to LaGrange Road to catch a trolley into Cicero, where he worked. And it was a long day. Come hell or high water, he had to walk.
And where did he work?
Well, he worked in Cicero at the L.J. Dean Company.
Oh. What's a trolley?
The streetcar used to come from Chicago. Well, really, it was, I don't know where it started, Riverside, but it went into the city, and it stopped at Stone Avenue and Burlington. Hillgrove.
And it was that run by big wires overhead?
I don't remember.
Okay. Well, you're the first trolley guy that we've run into the history, so.
Well, you used to be able to get that to go to the zoo and to go in town to the elevators. You could take it down the elevator. I wouldn't say I ever did that much, but
Yeah.
it was there.
Did you remember who you went to the prom with, or in high school?
No, I couldn't.
Okay, you don't
remember.
have any girlfriend memories, or did you go on then from LT to college? And
Yes, I graduated in '42 from high school. and went to Illinois for a semester. And then because of the war, my draft number was coming up, so I volunteered.
Do you remember your draft number?
No, I can't remember that.
Okay. Where were you on Pearl Harbor Day?
At home. We went, I think that was a Sunday, wasn't it? Yeah. On Monday, we had a meeting at the auditorium at the high school. And that's when they told us about the war and what happened. And just basic facts about it.
Did you have brothers and sisters? I should have asked them.
2 younger sisters.
Okay. And what are their names?
Martha was my eldest, and Jane was my youngest.
Okay. And what did you start college in? What were you interested?
I was really in the engine school. I thought I'd be an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And after spending many a long night doing drawings and so forth, the last line I'd smudged and had to go start over again. I decided that wasn't for me.
Okay. And then you got drafted.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you? Where did you go for boot?
Well, I went into Camp Grant, and I had put in for the Air Force because I'd had some hours flying when I was 14 out of a little airport in south of LaGrange, and so I thought maybe that would help me get in the Air Force. Well, the Air Force was full when I went in. They said, well, we have an opportunity for you to go in the parachute troops if you'd like to do that. So 53 of us volunteered to go down to Camp Tacoma, Georgia. 3 of us finished. The rest were washed out.
Oh my goodness. Were they called the Rangers then, or was
no,
that?
that was a different group, small group.
Mm-hmm.
As I remember, I can't tell you. I'm not that.
You mentioned that you flew at 14.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you fly in? Had you an interest in flying then? Or?
I was very interested. I used to work. My father would drop me off about 6 or 6:30 in the morning out at the airport. I'd work all day, and I'd either walk home or he'd pick me up later in the day to get flying time by painting and rubbing down aircraft and whatever needed to be done. Was manual labor. I used to fly with, there was 3 fellows who used to give the lessons. One in particular I really liked because he would sit in the back seat and one in front of the other, and he'd say, okay, I'm going to take a nap. When the time's up, bring us back. So I had a lot of fun flying.
Was that a Piper Cub?
They were Cubs, and they were also Aronicas and Luscombe. Can't remember all of them now.
Was that the dirt strip that took off over the quarry?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, on 55th Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, I flew out of there.
Yeah.
So did you get a license, or did you?
No, I didn't have enough hours.
Okay.
And it was, money was hard to come by in those days.
Mm-hmm.
So
you did you have any other jobs? I mean, you were washing down the planes and everything, but did you work anywhere, like in a grocery store or newspaper route, or?
Well, I used to work for a family who was making French dressing in Western Springs, and they used to make it in their basement, and it was a very popular dressing. It was the beginning of the outdoor cooking business, and they had a lock on this salad dressing, and we used to make it in great big vats, and then put it in bottles and label it. They would hold the Zephyr, the California Zephyr, which there weren't airplanes in those days, and the Zephyr was the #1 way to go to the West Coast. And they would hold that if they didn't have enough sauce to last to get them through. because people demanded it. So it was a real popular product.
That was the beginning of your sales career, which we'll get to in a minute. Let's
No, I
go.
really wasn't in that.
Oh.
I was just doing the mixing and the modeling.
Oh, okay. Let's go back to your basic training.
Mhm.
What were some of the things as a paratrooper in 1942 did they put you through to train you?
Well, we had a lot of physical training. And most of that was at Camp Toccoa, Georgia. It was a lot of running up and down the mountain, and which was a tough grind to work out every day. You really had a full time of exercise and calisthenics and running, and then as the time went on, we began to specialize into, for rifle handling and so forth. I was actually in the artillery, the parachute field artillery.
What kind of armament did you train on then? Would they drop guns from planes like a 50 millimeter or something?
We had 75 millimeter howitzers. They used to fit in 4 cartons, 4 packages, and they would release those when we jumped too. We hoped they released them a little earlier so they didn't drop them on top of us.
What was their range? Would they shoot a quarter mile or?
Yeah, probably about a quarter mile.
Okay.
They were. They still have the same howitzers in the service.
My gosh. You say 5 of you made it through that training.
3 of us.
3 of you. What really wiped the other guys out? What couldn't they do or?
Well, it was a combination of different things. We had to. There was a lot of discipline, and you had to be able to do everything. They had fellows who maybe couldn't close their hands completely because of a bad finger or something. They didn't want them because you had to grab the shrouds or the parachute in order to steer it and keep from killing yourself when you landed.
Can you remember your first jump and what kind of a plane was it out of?
They were C-47s, and the first one was at Fort Benning. We went through. They made a division up of us. That came in at that time was the 11th Airborne Division, and we went through the jump school and all the training as a total unit, as a whole division, and that was a little different than everything they'd done in the past.
Did you have personal firearms, or a rifle or a sidearm? Or?
30 caliber carbines.
Okay.
See, the regular was an M1 for the infantry, but then since we jumped, we had a folding stock carbine that we wore. Well, you can see it on the picture.
Okay, we'll get that in a minute. So the first jump, how high were you when you jumped?
About 1,200 feet.
Okay. And was that with full equipment?
At the first, it was not. Then we did jump with full equipment.
Okay.
We had to make 5 jumps. We had to pack our own parachutes, and we, of course, being in the infantry, in the artillery, we had all of our equipment packed there too, and we had to. We used to have further training as we trained. We had to do time trials, or whatever you want to call them, of the time it took us to jump, hit the ground, get the guns together, and be set up to fire.
And how many men were involved in that in the unit? Was it 50 or 100?
We had 4 batteries, 4 gun batteries, and so that was, I can't remember the number of men we had in each battery though. 60, maybe 50 or 60, I suppose.
Yeah. How were paratroopers used in World War II? What were your missions?
Well, first of all, we went in. First of all, I wasn't in the 11th at that time. I was in a general hospital when the 11th went overseas, and the general took every but 3 of us because we had bad legs, and So I ended up going back to Fort Benning and being a jump instructor for a short time. And then interesting story, sideline.
That's what we're here for.
I was walking down the street one night, going to the PX to have a beer, and this car stopped and said, "Would you like a ride, Trooper?" And I said, "Sure, never walk if you can ride." And it was a general, and he was the commanding general, I guess, of Fort Benning. And he said, he asked me how I was doing and whether I liked it and what the experiences I'd had. He said, "Well, what would you like to do?" And I said, "Gee, I'd like to go to Europe, fight the war." He says, "You don't want to go over to the South Pacific with your outfit?" And I said, "It's too late to get together with them. Might as well start over." 3 days later, I was on my way to Europe.
Oh my gosh! And where did you end up in Europe? And who were you with?
I went to England, and then we went. I joined the 17th Airborne, and we went into Germany at the Bulge, the time of the Bulge, and that was with the 17th with all the troops they could muster, because that was when the big breakthrough came. The Germans were giving one last gasp, so to speak.
So you trained, and then you were, what was it like on that mission? Can you kind of describe where you started, what you did, where you landed, and
well, we went in by ground that time.
Okay.
Our main purpose was they were throwing everybody they could get in there. We were fighting as infantrymen and ill-equipped to do that. First of all, we didn't have the cold weather equipment. It was in the Bulge, it was about 10 degrees, 2 to 3 feet of snow in the area, and we were just trying to plug the holes.
Okay, can you tell us a little about your impression of what the Battle of the Bulge was?
Well, it was, you mean as far as what actually happened?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Germans were throwing everything they had at that time to really cut off a whole army or two of our armies, and they came close to doing it, except that we reacted quick enough to get enough men in there that we could survive.
Were you under fire from the Germans? And as you went in, were you actually in combat? You were shooting at them and they were shooting at you?
Oh yes, I should say we lost we lost quite a few fellows at the Bulge, because there was the big problem was the 88s. Millimeter cannons. They could put a lot of shells in a short time, and they were very, very effective.
How did they sound coming in?
Well, you could hear. You didn't have much time because they were pretty fast. You could hear them whistle, so to speak, and I don't know. You heard them too good, you were in trouble.
Okay. When you got through to the men inside of the Bulge, did you join up with them?
Well, yes. Actually, that was the 101st that was in there. But they had been trapped. They had put them in there, initially, and then they were all. I can't remember the exact. When you say we were there, I think. We never really did get to them, because the Germans were coming through and they had tanks, and all of our tank pulled out and left us there, except for one black tank that had it. And if it hadn't been for them, we wouldn't have made it,
Yeah. How did you feel under combat? How old were you then?
19.
19.
Mm-hmm.
Were you scared, or did you?
Well, I suppose you'd say, yeah, you were, it's kind of hard to describe it, because you were, certain circumstances, well, I don't think I was ever really scared. I was more of trying to figure out what you were going to do. It was, once we cleaned up the area we were in, and then unfortunately, when they came back again, we had to get going to get out of here. But we had our guns set up and everything, and it was a little different. We were a little bit different in the bulge than we were on the jump, when we jumped into Germany.
During the bulge, when you finally got control and the ministry, then did you come back for some R&R, or did you get some time off?
Regroup. No, we were airborne, so they took us out first. As soon as they could, they took us out and prepared for the next thing, which we didn't know about. But we knew something was going on because they were putting us into training and doing, getting us ready again. No R&R.
Yeah. Where were you located then? Were you in France or?
France.
Uh-huh.
A little town named Joanne, I guess. I can't remember the exact timing on that.
Were you?
Went back, yeah, we went to Joanne, and then we went to Reims to prepare for the jump into Germany over the Rhine.
Okay. Were you in touch with people back home? Did you have a girlfriend then, or were you married, or?
No, I wasn't married. I didn't have any girlfriend.
Okay.
I wrote to my folks every couple times a week, I suppose.
Did you get packages from home that you look forward to, like cookies or anything? Or?
Occasionally.
Yeah.
Yeah. It always took a little while to catch up,
Yeah.
even though we didn't move a lot. We changed locations, from December. We went to a couple different places for training, and for getting reorganized, and so forth after going into the bulge.
When you came back after the bulge and you started preparing for your next drop, what was that like, and did you know the target, and what kind of preparation did you do?
We really didn't know. It was normal training. We didn't really do anything different than we'd been doing before.
Okay. Did you have any friends that kind of followed with you through all of this, or you kind of sounds like you went in on your own with a new group?
Yes, I went to a new group by myself, and I was in fire control, so I really didn't know anybody in the 17th when I went there.
Yeah. What's fire control?
Well, when you set up your guns, you have to have a control center to give the directions for up and down, left and right, and so forth for when you were shooting, when you were shooting your howitzers.
So were you an observer, or was somebody out there telling you what to do?
No, we had observers that were with the band, with the battalion. That was a kind of a thankless job, a very dangerous job. Because we weren't that far, it wasn't like, we were closer into the fighting all the time. And every time we were in the fighting, at the Battle of the Bulge in Bastogne, we had, there was fighting all around you, sometimes the enemy was behind you, which was not too good.
Did you get information about what was going on in the war, or did you hear radio or read anything that sort of kept you up to date as a paratrooper of what's going on, or?
Not really. We used to, of course, in fire control, we were working with the maps, and we knew the area we were in and so forth, but we didn't have, when you were in combat, you didn't have a lot of time for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. When you went into Germany now on this next big drop, what was it like? Did you go in gliders, or did you go in?
They had everything, gliders, paratroopers. It was just over the Rhine, and they jumped our battalion. First of all, we went in very low. fortunately very low. I was one of the first planes for our group. And we jumped at about 550 feet, between 500 and 550 feet, which was really good because there was concentrations of Germans down there shooting at us. In fact, the B battery, which was kind of my area, they killed, all the officers were killed, and we lost about, well, I can't tell you, a lot of men in a very short time. Very short.
And do you know the name of the town you were jumping on, or was
Wessel.
it Wessel?
Around Wessel, yeah. Actually, no, you were in the country, you weren't in the city.
Yeah. And that was in the spring of 45?
March 24th.
Yeah, March 24th. And the Wessel raid was a tremendous, that was the last of the really big Parrot jumps.
Yeah, well, that was the last one, because that was the one that broke their back. We went over the Rhine, and see all the rivers. If you've ever looked at the maps, the rivers were kind of natural boundaries for to keep, to get through. You had to go over the rivers, and of course they blew up a lot of the bridges and the Remagen or Ramagen. You've probably heard about that. That was one of the famous bridges.
Bridge too far.
Yeah.
Tell us again, how long was the flight that while you were in the plane to get to the drop area?
Well, we took off from France, and is that right? I can't remember. But the flight wasn't very long. It was a really relatively short flight. Yeah. And nobody liked to be in those airplanes very long anyway. Yeah. Because there were still anti-aircraft. Yeah, it was in the 88s, which was the Germans' best gun, could go to -5 and straight up to 90 degrees. Yeah. So it was very flexible and devastating.
Did you hear on the radio there was the German lady, not Tokyo Rose, Axis Sally, I think she was called, that was telling you all that they knew you were coming?
Yes, we had heard about that. I'd forgotten about that until just you mentioned it. Yeah. There was a lot of, we knew we were going to go, but we didn't know where. But we were getting messages like that. People had heard, came back. People were at headquarters, and the old Army stuff. I guess a rumor starts up with a guy in here at Army headquarters, and the next thing you know, it's down to the guys in the trenches.
Yeah. Well, that was the largest airdrop in World War II, and it was the most successful, and it probably got the least publicity, because how long was it after the drop that Germans surrendered? Was it 5 months or?
About that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we were the first day drop too. In the past, they'd done everything at night, thinking that was better, from all the way from Sicily up to from North Africa to Sicily, Italy, and all the rest of them had been night. And this was a day drop, and it worked out great, except for the fact that we weren't landing right where we were supposed to land.
Oh, okay. Do you remember anything about leaving the plane and how you felt going down? And
oh, sure. There was. I had two generals that I jumped, and the stick that I was in charge of. We had 2 sticks in a jump in every airplane, one on one side, one on the other. And the 2 generals were with me, and the first one, they were one of the first 2 or 3 that went off. And they kind of told me to look out for them.
Oh, great.
And they both got silver stars for the jump.
Oh. And what's a stick?
Well, that's the number of men. About 9 to 12 men are in a stick. And you go out, you crunch up, and you get those guys out of there in about 4 or 5 seconds if you're really good.
And how long was the drop? How long were you in the air?
Well, at 500 feet, if your main chute didn't open, you didn't have a chance to get the other one open.
Okay.
Didn't mean anything. Because you were dropping, I think it's 73 feet. You go,
Per minute or?
no, 73 feet, you drop before your chute starts to open.
Oh,
And then you got, and if you're oscillating, you could really be in the wrong spot at the right time when you're, you don't have much time to fool with it.
and how much equipment did you have in the weight in that drop?
Well, you can see on the picture I brought,
Let's,
packs and everything, a lot of stuff.
could you take that picture and hold it up
Sure.
right in front of your face? We're so close here that I'm gonna come in even more on it. And are you in that picture?
Yes, I'm the man over here.
All right, and what are you doing?
I was helping these two lieutenants get their equipment on.
Oh, just a little higher. That's it, great, now I got it.
That was preparing for the jump.
And this was the German jump.
Yes, the Germany.
What does the guy have on what are you checking, that black, is that his gun?
It's down this, you see on the left side here
Okay,
is the M5, M3 carbine, 30 caliber carbine. They had 45s. The officers carried 45s.
and what have you got on your helmet?
Oh, that's a first aid pack.
Okay,
Safest place for it, because if your head's blown off, you don't need it.
all right, I've got that, thank you. When you hit the ground, what's the procedure? How did you hit the ground with all that pack stuff?
Sometimes hit pretty hard.
Yeah.
In training, like when I was a jump instructor, we had a major that came in, and I don't know, his chute opened fine, but he apparently was, when you were coming down, you oscillate. And he was apparently just on the process of going down, and he pushed both of his ankles up about halfway to his knees
Oh.
because he hit so hard,
Yeah.
which was unfortunate. They tried to teach you how to do that, but you say sometimes you couldn't, I guess. Or sometimes you just like stepping off a step.
Yeah.
You were really good at it.
Did you have like a percent of people that were damaged legs and things on a jump? Was there like 1% or 10%?
I don't know. No, they didn't quote percents. There was always guys that were hurt.
Okay.
They jumped us in the training in the United States when I was still with the 11th. We were at Fort Polk, Camp Polk, Louisiana, and that's swamp and forest and so forth. They jumped us right over a lake with the woods all around it, and we had a lot of guys lost in that. That's where the hospital there in Texas was very busy for a while.
Was that because they're drowned in the water or they get tangled
Well,
up?
that was, a combination of things, but the problem was we weren't supposed to be landing there in the first place. The Air Force dropped us in the wrong place. They were supposed to go another, maybe 600 yards or something, or a little further than that, probably to the open areas.
Okay, let's go back to the drop in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
When you're on the ground, you had two generals to take care of, which you obviously did. They got stars, or whatever it
Yeah.
was. And what was your next move, and what were you looking for?
What we were doing was cleaning. We had to clean out, because there were a lot of German troops there. We had to, first of all, clean up the area. It only took us 2.5 hours, I think, and we had our guns set up and ready to support the infantry. And so it went very well, considering we had to fight for everything we were doing.
Are you talking fighting in terms of a quarter mile or 2 miles or 10 miles? Or
like being in a farmland. There was a lot closer in because there was more. They didn't have the space that we have in the United States. It was like let's either be maybe quarter mile or half a mile between farms, and so there was quite a few houses and things. Our biggest problem, the Germans were in all houses, and they were shooting us as we were landing. And with machine guns, and they had high 88s, and so it was touch and go for, as I said, we lost a lot of men in that first 3 minutes.
Yeah. Were these experienced German troops, or being at the end of the war, were they young kids?
There was quite a few young ones, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Of course, we had the same thing. The guys that we had gotten after the bulge, some of them had just been on a basic training, and any additional training, but they needed people at that time.
After you secured the area, did you meet any of the local people, or did you ever have contact with them, or?
Well, no, some of the local people were shooting us. One of the fellows that I worked with ended up in a tree, and some old farmer came out and filled him full of lead in the groin, the groin up.
Yeah.
And he lived, but there was, there was a lot of injuries.
Okay, now was that the end of the paratrooping, or did you, with the war coming to an end, did you just stay in Germany and then you were shipped back, and how did that process
Well,
look?
actually, the division, we had replacements, and then, in theory, they were, as soon as the war in Europe was over, they were going to go to the Pacific, but I didn't have to go because I had enough points at that time to stay. So I stayed, and I deactivated the 101st, part of the deactivation team, and then went to the 82nd and marched down Fifth Avenue with the parade, for the victory parade,
What was that?
The other war.
What was that like coming back? Did you fly into New York, or?
I had a round trip ticket on the Queen Mary.
Oh.
Forethought, if you plan ahead.
Yeah, that's great. Do you remember seeing the Statue of Liberty, or what you felt?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both ways.
Yeah.
Not really. I don't think we saw it. I think we went out at night.
Yeah. How did you get from the ship to the parade? Did you just parade right off of it, or?
No, we went, where was it? I can't even remember.
Okay. But the parade was really something.
Yeah, well, it was, it was quite an event.
Okay.
Most of us, as soon as we got through with the parade, we could go home, so that's what we were most interested in.
Yeah.
There were some people some that wanted to stay on the service, but I wasn't one of them.
No. So you made 2 drops, combat drops, or did you make?
No, just one combat jump.
Okay, the other one you went in on land for the
Yeah,
Battle of
yeah.
Bulge.
But the old saying was there weren't many people that had more than one combat jump
Yeah.
that survived.
Did you get any special commendations or anything that honors that you earned? You didn't get a Purple Heart, which is good.
No, I didn't. But no, when I saw how easy it was to get, they said just write up what you did, and you'll get a medal. I decided I didn't. That's why they did it. I wasn't interested in it.
Okay.
I lost a lot of faith in some of those things.
Well, you're right, but you did get, compared to some people, I know what you're saying. When you were discharged, then did you come back home, and you were still not married?
No.
Okay.
I had dated Joanne, my wife, in high school.
What was her maiden name?
Heath.
Heath. Okay.
She went with a fellow from LaGrange, all during high school. But I'd had one date with her when I was a sophomore. I guess she was a freshman, and then not again until after the war.
And when did you see her the first time when you got back? Did you call her up, or did she call you up? Or?
Oh no, I met at Vans. Vans used to be the drugstore in LaGrange.
Yeah.
On Stone Avenue that everybody had, all the people hung out at.
Did they have a soda fountain there?
They did it, yeah.
And that would be 1946 or 45?
That'd be 46, the beginning of 46.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then what did you start in your career, post-war?
Well, I went back to school. I went to the University of Illinois before the war, but I decided I wanted to stay and go to junior college in LaGrange
Okay.
because I had been away from home enough, and I'd met Joanne. So I did that, and then went to Northwestern and graduated from Northwestern.
What in? What did you?
Marketing and management.
Mhm.
And can't remember.
When did you get your first car in all of this history? Do you remember your first automobile?
After I was married.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was it?
And I was poor too. I didn't have any money even then.
Yeah.
It was a second used Plymouth. Just a two-seater. There was a little tray in the back. And we used to go out with some of our friends, and we'd have all four sit in the front seat. We had a lot of fun those days.
So you went to Northwestern on the GI Bill?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, on the JC too, junior college.
Yeah.
too.
That was, and then where did your career go from there?
Well, while I was working there, I used to visit, have lunch with a friend of mine who was in the glove business. And right next to their office was an office with Bluebell Incorporated. And they had a fancy office and secretaries and everything. And so I said, I'd like to check on that company. So I checked on them, knew people that knew the executives and everything. And went in and went for an interview. And 33 and a half years later, I left.
And what were some of your career moves within the company? What did you do?
Well, I started out as a salesman in the Chicago area, became the regional manager. We had about 4 or 5 regions. And then went to the West Coast and became a regional manager out there. And then I started up a couple companies for the company. When I left there, I was created a new division or a new company for them. But that was only for a couple of years. It was kind of an experimental thing. And then I went back to, I went to lived in 4 different places there while I was doing that. And then I came back to Chicago as a regional manager in Chicago, which I started in 16 years ago, 17
What
years ago.
what were some of the products you sold? And was there anything that was very trendy or?
Oh, I should say, we were, when I was on the West Coast, as I said, there was something like $50,000 worth of business in women's jeans. When I left, there was 15 million. But I was with Wrangler Jeans,
Yeah.
and we were nobody else even touched us in the women's jean business at that time.
And jeans, did they sort of come out of World War II, or were people? I don't remember people wearing jeans until.
I wore them in grade school.
Did you?
Sure.
Okay.
This one, that was you listen to the newspapers and the TV and so forth, and they tell you things you think they give you the straight dope, and a lot of times it isn't, because we were doing in our Chicago office 15 million in jeans when I first went there, and we did 50 million in jeans. And Levi wasn't even in the picture at that time. But they, during the war, we turned over most of our 90% of our production to the government for uniforms and so forth. And Levi stayed in the retail business and took all our business.
Yeah.
That's a little oversimplified, but
Well, this is kind of reaching, but there was a great Western song that came out, I think, in the 60s about walking in her jeans. And when you had something like that happen, did sales actually jump just because of music or something that...
oh, sure.
Okay.
Well, we really did a lot of promoting back in those days. We've always been big with the rodeo people, and real cowboys always have worn Wranglers rather than anything else, because they fit better and they were better made. And then in when the fashion came in, when the fashion started, we owned the business. But then the fashion people got into, Calvin Klein and what are some of the other gals? I can't think of their name now. They still are selling some, but they didn't sell. When you talk about dozens, they talk about pieces. We talk about dozens, hundreds of dozens in volume. And even when they said jeans were out, we're still selling thousands and thousands of dozens.
Tell us about the family now. You came back, and what date were you married? Where were you married?
Now you're putting me on the spot.
This is on tape.
1948, yeah.
Okay.
1948, we got married, and I was still in school. I didn't go back to school in 1940, latter part of 46, and that's when I went to work. There we had, a couple of years later, we had our first son, then we had a daughter, and then another son.
And what were their names?
Jim, Peg, and John.
Okay. And now, how about grandchildren?
No, unfortunately, our oldest boy had diabetes and died at 22.
Okay.
And our daughter and son-in-law were killed in an automobile accident. Tough 2 years.
Yeah, I imagine it was.
Our youngest son is still living, but they couldn't have any children.
Yeah. Where are they located?
They're down in Texas.
Okay. Take a little. What do you do for recreation? And what does your wife do for recreation?
Well, my wife loves to cook, and she likes to paint, so she spends a lot of time cooking and painting. And I play golf in California. I play 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays with a regular group, regular guys, same guys. And here I play maybe once or twice a week, golf.
And you have been involved with museums, with the San Diego Museum for a while, and then
Well, only as a member. But I used to be one of their best recruits. Everybody that came to California had to go to the San Diego Aerospace Museum.
How did you get to Southern California? What chose?
Well, during the time I was working, I was stationed in Los Angeles, well, San Francisco and L.A. But while I was in L.A., I had men that lived down in San Diego and traveled, so I traveled with them. And I always said that is the place I wanted to go back to.
Yeah.
Well, it took me several years to convince my wife that that's where she wanted to go. So far away.
Dee, we're very thankful for you as a World War II veteran. And we like to thank you and be on record, and I have a tough time getting through this. But we're very proud of you, and we're proud you're going to be at the Palm Springs Air Museum in our library, in the Library of Congress. So we officially thank you, and we look forward to getting everything to you for final editing. So do you have any other comments you'd like to make about being a World War II veteran?
I appreciate your inviting me, and I hope I've contributed something to it. I'll look forward to seeing the final version.
Good.
Who I used to work with in fire control, who was in the insurance business, and I think part of it was a good thing for him to be into. was to be involved, but he got involved with the 17th. He was president of the organization twice.
Mhm.
And we had a mutual friend that we had also worked with, who died just a couple of years ago. And he had a lot of stuff from, the fellow that I'm talking about that died was Manuel Pena. And he had a memory, wouldn't stop. He could, you mentioned a thing and he could tell you the whole story about it. And neither Bill Smith or I could do that. So we always depended on Manuel. Whenever we wanted to remember something, we'd call Manuel and he'd say, "Oh, sure." And so he's got all the things that he had from Manuel.
And what are these association, what is?
17th Airborne Division Association.
And do you meet once a year, or?
They do, but I've been on maybe a half a dozen of them over the
Yeah.
years. I was at least bit interested in going back and seeing any of even the people. We had some people from different parts of the country who were literally killers.
Yeah.
And I really didn't want to be associated with them,
Yeah.
But
You
as the
mean
time
that
went by,
during the war they were, I mean, you say killer, these,
well,
are-
I can remember one incident down, and I hope are you taping this still?
yeah, that's okay, I'd like to leave it in here, because this is part of what our history's about.
In one, when we were at Fort Benning, there was Phoenix City was across the river. And there were some good bars over there, and these guys go over there. And one guy shot and killed a guy at the bar. They never got him, never did anything to him. But they were, kind of a rough bunch. They were tough.
Were they a certain part of the country, or?
No, they were from a couple of big cities.
Yeah. That's interesting. Okay.
One of them, I'm convinced, was with the mafia.
Yeah.
And I had another interesting thing. We had a replacement come to us over in Europe, and we had three of us. I was a Protestant. One fellow from Boston was a Catholic, and this fellow was an atheist, practically. And we used to sit around and they'd talk. I didn't know enough to talk about it, but I used to listen to them. It turns out the guy that came in was John Gates. He'd been a general in the Spanish Civil War, and he a communist, and he had he was attached to us, and then when he got out of the service, he was the editor of the Daily Worker. So I had really had some interesting things that happened, talking.
Yeah.
But I really didn't have a lot in common with John Gates either.
Okay.
Maybe 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm. It's just hard for you to recall that and what you went through, and
I tried to block it out. I just forgot about all that.
yeah.
He didn't like you have to learn to live with some things, but some things you can't. You can forget about them. If you want to.
Yeah.
I learned that the hard way. But it's I used to enjoy sitting down with Manuel. He lived in California, down in Carlsbad, where
Mm-hmm.
where that is. And in fact, we took his wife or his widow to dinner. We always go over and take her to dinner a couple times while we're there. And we did this before we came back. And I told her I sure miss Manuel, because people ask me questions about the war now, and I can't remember anything.
Yeah. Well, you've done a great job in the interview. I think you'll be pleased, and unless there's something else you want to talk about.
I don't come through very well on that because of my voice. I don't know. This was